Hi, my name's Simon Fleming. I'm an orthopaedic hand, wrist and peripheral nerve fellow at the Royal North Shore in Sydney. I'm a UK trained orthopaedic surgeon by trade, and today I've been asked to speak about why I became a surgeon, why I became an orthopaedic surgeon. It's not an easy question to answer because it's made up of loads of little moments. When I was at medical school, I very quickly realized that I wasn't physicianly inclined. One of my mentors said that surgery would suit my ego and my attention span. But look, when you go to medical school, you talk about, oh, I like science and I want to help people, but you've never really had an opportunity to test that or reflect on that. And so it wasn't until I really started spending time on the wards that I realized I was a real pragmatist. I love fixing things, whether it's bones or people or culture. I love having a challenge, a problem that I can really get my teeth into, that I can find solutions to, and then I can move on to the next problem, the next challenge. In my third year of medical school, I thought maybe emergency medicine was for me, obstetric and gynecology was for me, or one of the surgical specialties. I very much something where I felt I would be more active with technical and non-technical facets to it as well. And then I guess I went through one of those life-changing moments. So I was a medical student in the Royal London during the 7/7 bombings. We were downstairs in the lecture theatre in the old Royal London that's since been renovated. And as you do, we were all kind of checking our watches because our lecturer hadn't turned up. And again, as you do as a medical student, it got to kind of whatever it was, 9:10, 9:15, and we were like, they're clearly not coming. Excellent, everyone's going home, and we get a day in the pub or with our mates. And what was weird was we were trying to message our friends to say, lecture's off, meet you somewhere. And all the phone networks were down. We had no phone signal. It was really weird. And we went upstairs and we just walked into organized chaos. And of course, there'd been a terror attack on London and a major incident had been declared. And what was interesting was different kind of groups and mentalities declared themselves. There were a certain cohort of people that were like, I got to get out of here, I got to get home, I've got to be somewhere else. There were a group of people who it hit really hard and they seemed to go into shock a little bit. They kind of sat down or went very pale. And then there were a cohort of us who kind of stepped up a little bit. And basically we went up to, there was a man with a clipboard. And we said, we're medical students, how can we help? And he gave us all little plastic pinnies and little stickers on our chests, and we became porters and phlebotomists. We were putting intravenous access into people, and we were taking them wherever we were told to take them. And during that chaos, during that day, there was a kind of a lull at one point or another. And over in a corner in A&E, there were just these group of people. And I remember turning to the person next to me and saying, who are they? What group are they? And they said, those are the surgeons. Those are the vascular surgeons over there. Those are the general surgeons. Those are the orthopedic surgeons. And I could just see them taking everything in their stride, making plans, dealing with each problem as it presented itself, kind of communicating continuously about what to do, where to do it, how to do it, what order to do it in. And I remember thinking, one day I'd like to be like that. I'd like to be that competent in a crisis. I'd like to be presented with not just one problem, but a million problems and have the cognitive bandwidth and training to just roll with it, to just make it work. And so I started looking at those surgical specialties, the kind of, if you like, the resuscitative and reconstructive specialties. So, ortho, vascular, plastics, gen surg, really. And as with all things, I kind of reached out to people and I asked for advice. And the advice I was given was, look at the life the consultants have and look at their elective and their trauma practice and think about what you could do for 5 to 10 years as a trainee and then what you could do for 20, 30, 40 years as a boss. And so very rapidly I started to rule out certain specialties for a variety of reasons. And this isn't specialty bashing, it's just the reality, which is there are certain things that just don't resonate with you when you do a specialty. There's certain things that you go, I'd rather not. I found vascular trauma absolutely fascinating. I loved every second of it. I loved the intricacy of carotid endarterectomies, but I found a lot of the elective work with some of the patient populations they deal with really, really frustrating. I recognized in myself that I would find it difficult to do a bypass on someone and them not change behaviors and potentially have to do multiple revisions or even amputations on them. Similarly in plastics, I really enjoyed the hand surgery aspect of it, but I really didn't enjoy a lot of the other microvascular work they did. I didn't enjoy the 10, 15-hour flaps. It wasn't for me. I enjoyed intricate work, but again, on a shorter scale. And I did orthopedics, and I felt like I really fit in, which was weird because I simultaneously felt like I really fit in, and I talk about it in other spaces, my culture change work. I felt like they were my people, they were my community, which is why it felt so weird when I felt like I didn't fit in, like I didn't laugh at certain jokes or think that certain behaviors were acceptable. But on a baseline level, I looked at what they did electively in terms of reconstructive work, trauma work, arthroplasty. I looked at what they did in terms of the trauma stuff they do, fixing fractures, manipulating fractures, a nice mix of soft tissue stuff as well. And I thought, this is for me. This is where I want to be. And I won't lie, that again, I'm always sort of envious of people who have never had their faith tested. There were moments during both my foundation training, my core training, and my higher surgical training where I was like, have I made a mistake? I wanted to be a surgeon. I went and I did my foundation jobs, and I really didn't see very much in the inside of an operating theatre as a foundation trainee, but I thought of that job as very much a kind of grounding in the generalities of medicine. I kind of made my peace with that. But then I became a core trainee, and again, there really wasn't much in the way of surgery. And by the end of my core training, I really wasn't happy. I was pretty burnt out. I'd been, living alone, far from friends, not really getting the job satisfaction I wanted, experiencing some of the more negative aspects of surgical culture. So I'm not just talking about orthopedics here, but kind of generally. And I was sort of over it. So I actually stepped away from surgery and went and did a year as a clinical teaching fellow. I did anatomy demonstrating. I was a PBL tutor. I got to travel around the world, kind of teaching all the rest. And maybe in the latter third of that year, I started to really miss surgery. Not just the technical surgical bits of the job, though that was definitely part of it. I started to miss everything else. I started to miss the team, the community, the challenge. So I actually went to Australia, slightly further north than where I am now. I went to a place called Bundaberg in Queensland, and I did a year as an orthopedic registrar, and I loved every second of it. I loved my clinics, and I loved my on-calls, and I loved my operating lists. And I was reminded of all the things that had made me want to be a surgeon in the first place. And so I sort of took a deep breath and accepted that my future lay probably in what we now call portfolio careers, which is a surgeon who wore more than one hat. So I came back to the UK. I did a year as a CT3. So I did 7 or 8 months at the Royal National Orthopaedic Hospital in Stanmore and 6 months at Chelsea. And then I got on my orthopedic training program. But throughout that time, I was also doing loads of medical education work. I was also doing loads of culture change work. I even took three and a bit years out during my higher surgical training, during my STs, to do my PhD in orthopedic education. And I think that's part of it too. Part of the reason I became a surgeon is because it's such a a broad term, like, oh, I'm a surgeon. But I'm a surgeon, I'm a surgical educator, I'm a surgical advocate. There's so much more to being a surgeon than holding a scalpel or wielding a hammer. And that was another reason why I became a surgeon. It just allowed me to do so many things that I enjoy, whether that's helping patients use their hands again, getting that function back, improving their quality of life, or teaching and educating. And the operating theatre is such an amazing space for that in terms of a teaching space, because if you really lean into it, if you really make that space your own, it is a glorious place to educate and mentor and inspire and give people some of the surgical experiences that perhaps I would have wanted when I was a little bit more junior. So yeah, that's me. I'm an orthopedic hand surgeon, and that's why I wanted to become one.